Hey, one more thing before you go. Do you feel overwhelmed by your emotions? Do you struggle to find peace and clarity in your everyday life? If so, have you ever considered meditation? I do it every day. Contrary to popular belief, meditation is not about denying your feelings or suppressing your emotions. Instead, it's about becoming more mindful and aware of them so you can respond to situations efficiently and effectively. I like both parts of those. In fact, by practicing meditation, you can gain a calm and clear mind that will help you in all aspects of your life, including your career, art, sports, passion, even relationships with friends. And I would like to add, I manage my pain with meditation. So join us on this journey of mindfulness and self discovery with a man that has perfected living a life of joy and self realization. We're going to show you how. I'm your host, Michael R. Herst. Welcome to One More Thing Before You Go. Hey, my guest in this episode is an author, a speaker, and a meditator. Chris Cirak is passionate about turning sophisticated topics into accessible, meaningful, and inspiring experiences. With an extensive background in design, psychology, and tech, he breaks down the traditional teachings to make ancient wisdom accessible and discoverable by modern audiences. That's what we're going to learn today. His BU mindfulness program helps you gain transformative insights by following a simple step by step approach to reacting less and thriving more. Chris has been practicing meditation since 2015. He studied with and learned from many of the luminaries of our time, including Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, Dr. Brian Weiss, Joseph Campbell, so many more. He has a course in miracles and many others who have inspired him along the way. Certified meditation teacher by the World Yoga Alliance, Chris teaches living a life of joy and self realization using design methodology based on empathy, listening, mindfulness, and human values. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Welcome to welcome to myself, I guess. Thank you, Michael, for having me on. This is a real pleasure. I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, you know, it is that last part of that intro. I think that that really resonates with me because I think we all should be living that anyway. I mean,
Mm.
even if we're not seeking out to, we should, I think, in my opinion, I think that we all should open our eyes, our mind, and our heart, connect our body and our soul to live that every day because I think we as humanity need that.
Yeah, we need it, and it's ultimately our natural state. So we've kind of gotten away from that a little bit. We really live in a world where um, we create more problems for ourselves than actually responding to real existing ones. And so just finding back to feeling our feelings, observing our thoughts, uh, working with the flow, participating in life,
That's the key.
and as opposed to being in resistance to it. Yeah, that is the key.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely the key. You know, participating in life, not sitting back just watching it on the TV and staffing or fast forwarding through the commercials,
Yes,
so to
yeah.
speak, the little obstacles.
Yeah. And a lot of that is designed to elicit reactions from us. So we live in this busy world, and a lot of that busyness is just, call it noise, but it's opinions. It's people
Yeah.
wanting us to buy into their version of the truth and their version of what's right and wrong and so forth. And so we're constantly being pulled into our heads. And the mind is, it's a great tool for
Yep.
certain organizational and planning matters, but it's not who we are. And our inner truth that resides in our body and our intuition, all of those are much more uh, remarkable gifts that help us navigate life in the way we're supposed to be so that we can find ourselves and live by our truth.
I agree with that. I think that unfortunately, especially from my old profession, coming forward in life through that and seeing the the worst people in life in the worst situations and the best people at their worst during those time periods, you get to really observe people from a perspective of like way down bottom, rock bottom, many of them, and had no hope, had no opportunity, but at the same time, they were reaching out for compassion and humanity, and it wasn't always there. You know, you literally could see the joy in their eyes when somebody reached a hand down. and you can understand that, I think I need to be living more of a life that's compassionate, and a life that's understanding, and a life that resonates with the fellow mankind. We're all connected.
Mm,
We're all connected.
yeah.
So, yeah, what an amazing opportunity for us to be able to educate people, hopefully inspire them and motivate them to come around to this way of thinking and moving it forward as we go.
Yeah. And to, as a police officer, you were probably at the forefront of these basic human needs that most of the time we just want to feel heard, we want to feel
Yep.
seen. So a lot of that behavior that we experience in the world around us and in ourselves is a cry for being seen and heard. It's a cry for
Yeah.
help. It really doesn't behoove anyone to just blame and point fingers, but to recognize what's behind the actions and the behaviors.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Well, listen, we're gonna kind of unfold your life a little bit, if you don't mind. I
Yay!
I would like to educate some people as to, like where you've been, where you grew up, and we'll talk about a little bit of how you got to where you're at right now, because that's been a journey within itself. We all take a journey. Sometimes we have people next to us and beside us that walk with us. Some people push us from behind. Some people pull us from the forward. So let's talk about how you got to where you're at. Where'd you grow up?
So that's, as you put it. I think my early years were where the struggles kind of set me on a particular path, and that was really my feeling like I didn't have any roots. My dad worked for the U.S. military. We moved around a lot. Both my parents were immigrants, and contrary to many immigrants, they never really settled. They had to, flee their countries, and as such, their heart was still in those places. And so I kind of grew up in this strange bubble of feeling like I didn't really belong into any particular culture or mindset, way of life. And so I struggled with that a lot in terms of, when you're young, all you feel is like you want to belong and you want to find your tribe and your group. And I didn't have that for a long time. But ultimately, that then led to having more perspective on the positive sides of that, which was to not be too indoctrinated into one way of thinking and living. And so that gave me a good perspective that then slowly, eventually became a strength. And that's kind of how life works, is that the challenges that we face, we then become experts at overcoming those challenges, and that's what puts us into a position of becoming teachers and being able to share and help others who are going through the same thing. So I was a corporate consultant for 25 years, and worked both at the entrepreneurial, lots of startups. That's where my heart was in terms of being able to see the impact of my work and my contributions, but also the corporate, a lot of Fortune 500 companies. That was more the bread and butter, and learning to navigate those big political environments taught me a lot of lessons. And so it's been a full life so far, and it continues to be. And then at some point, I recognized that even though I maintained a lot of passions from my youth, I continued to make music and play sports, and but even in those activities, I felt like something was missing, and that eventually it dawned on me that it's not what you do, it's how you do it. So you could be doing the most amazing things in the world, but if you're not present with the activity itself, it won't fulfill you. If you're still living for outcomes, it will leave you, longing for more. So I reached that place naturally by just kind of doing the things we're supposed to do, and carving out, enough time to work on myself. And then it slowly, eventually, through working on myself, a voice emerged that you know put me on this new track of really being of service, giving back, and helping others kind of come out of the noise, the busyness of our lives and our heads, and into the wisdom of our body, where our own blueprint lies and is waiting to be discovered.
That's like an amazing statement, just in thinking about it, as I think we all want to reach that level within ourselves that allows us to connect more with our body, our mind, our body, and our soul, from that deep level. We all need that. It's interesting. As I said earlier, we're all on a journey of life, and we all walk different paths, and we all walk similar paths. Your background, growing up in what you grew up in, like you said, it defined you to a point. Do you think that? I mean, I know it defined me. Mine. I grew up with a very dysfunctional family, both alcoholic parents, and so forth, and that set me on a path where I made a choice, and I could have followed in that path like some other members of my family, or I could make a choice to step out of that path. Do you think we're all at some point in our life presented with a choice like that?
Yeah, I mean, I talk about the black sheep often, and there's a chapter on it in my book, and how we tend to inherit the generational behavior and patterns in a way where we just accept them as the truth initially. And somewhere along the line, someone in the lineage will break those patterns, become more aware of them, and kind of shed the light of awareness onto this kind of more blind behavior. And we all play a role in that, and some more, some less. And yes, so we all have a responsibility to reflect on our behaviors, to see the things that we've inherited, both from our family, our environment, our generational patterns. There's just a lot of stuff that becoming aware of it is the key to having that choice. As you said, there is a choice every single moment of every single day to be more aligned with our own truth, and less aligned with our own truth. Right? We can feel what resonates with us and what doesn't, and ultimately, it's not really a choice not to be you. Right? So you can choose to go against the grain of who you're meant to be, but it's not going to behoove you. It won't feel right. It won't feel good in the long run. It'll make you unhappy and sick. And so ultimately, you want to be you, and the choice is there in every moment of every day. And we just have to stay connected to our inner voice, our inner truth, and it shows us the way.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a situation. Even when I was a cop, I had a lot of criminals going, why are you doing this to me? Because I've arrested them. It's like, well, you made a choice. You could have chosen not to do what you did, but you made a concerted choice to do what you did. So there's consequences for your actions from that perspective. But then you can also look at it from and many of these my audience have already know this. But I spent a number of years in a wheelchair because I was told I would be in that wheelchair for the rest of my life. Until my oldest daughter said, I want you to walk me down the aisle. She looked me square in the eye. She leaned down, put both hands here, and looked me square in the eye. I said, I want you to walk me down the aisle. And she says, I know you can do it. And at that point in my life, I made a choice. Do I still sit here and feel sorry for myself and angry and resentful because I'm here? Or do I figure out a way to walk my daughter down the aisle and make it a more positive thing? So I agree with you. Just to emphasize that we all are presented with choices in our lives, it gives us the opportunity to reflect on that choice and to see whether or not it's going to move us in a forward direction. It and I reinvented my life. My previous life, I was a cop, and I was on track to be, move up the line. I was a sergeant, taking the lieutenant's test, moving up the line like other colleagues. Then I found myself, what am I doing now? So I was able to reinvent my life. You did kind of the same thing because you were on this corporate path. You were on, this noise, as you said. You made that choice to reinvent yourself. Do we all have that opportunity to reinvent ourselves? That no matter, I won't say, I may be broad in this. The position or obstacle that's in our way, and or our point in life as an age.
Well, I would say that the we don't really leave ourselves behind ever. We bring past versions, past chapters with us, and that's really what gives us a unique voice. So anyone out there who's embarking kind of on what seems like a new career, well, your past experiences don't need to be left behind. They actually bring a uniqueness to the your new chapter. And all too often we shut ourselves down from writing a book or speaking about a certain topic or taking on a specific job, thinking that we don't have the background or it's already been done, and all of these kind of self-critical thoughts. Ultimately, our life, the imprint that life has on each and every one of us is so unique and so special. Nothing needs to be left behind. Sure, there's some surface activities that seem like they may not contribute to a new chapter, but the soul growth and the wisdom that all of those past chapters gifted us with, that's what we bring forward, and that's really how we bring newness and freshness into an area where there might be, a lot of people talking about a certain subject or a new job that seems like we're not qualified for. But no, we are qualified for everything because that's the opportunity that life has brought to us. So saying yes, giving ourselves a chance at least, whatever it may be, lean into it. I hear a lot of people talking about imposter syndrome and feeling like they're just kind of faking it. Well, that's a mind that likes to compare and criticize and try to rationalize the evolution of life, and it just doesn't do a good job at it. It's not meant to do that. It's more of an organizational planning tool. So we kind of have to have a practice that calms the busy mind, keeps us in our body, keeps us in the present moment where we're just experiencing and learning and responding to the things as they're happening. So life will bring us these opportunities just because we're ready for them. It's rare that you can just kind of will yourself into a new incarnation. It doesn't really work. It has to be an organic unfolding of life. And if we're open to responding to circumstances as they are, not in resistance, constant resistance to things, because we have this imaginary picture in our heads that it should be different, then these opportunities will show themselves more fluidly, more often, more organically. And then we have that choice to step into it or not. So that's kind of how I see life unfolding.
I understand that. I can relate to that. Do you think I mean, you mentioned something earlier, and I may expand a little bit on that. Do you think intergenerational trauma has a profound effect on who we are today?
Oh, huge. I've, read things about some trauma that happened 3 generations back has like a very large impact on your DNA evolving and your psyche forming.
Mm.
So we inherit behaviors. I have a friend who's a psychologist who's treating a little girl, 4 or 5, I think, whose mother was a professional athlete and due to an injury was had a limp, and now this little girl has a limp,
Wow.
and there's no physiological reason for it other than the psychology. So we learn through mimicry, we learn through just absorbing energy and speak and behavior from our environment. And so, yeah, everything is inherited one way or another. There's very few experiences that are truly our own. We already kind of come in baked with a certain imprint.
Well, and I hate to really tie this analogy to that statement, but working domestic violence task force for 4 years, we saw that intergenerational trauma. We saw individuals that were together, that the male or the female, because some people think that women are not just victims, women can be perpetrators as well. You see one or the other come into this relationship and understand that they grew up in the same type of violent or emotional abuse environment. And if you look back on that history, you find that the grandfather did it, the grandmother did it, the father did it, the mother did it, and now you're doing it, you're following through with it. So it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I hate to tie that analogy to it, but some people that I interviewed said, "Well, that's all I know."
Mm.
I mean, literally said, "That's all I know." It's like, well, now you got to know that there's consequence for actions, and you can make a choice to change. So, and that would apply for all of us if we realize that we are detrimental to ourselves or society in any particular way. We have an opportunity to make those kind of choices. So let's talk about meditation, and how that plays a factor into this. Because I use meditation, as I said earlier, for pain management. For me, it helps me immensely. It reduces my stress, it reduces my anger, it reduces my pain levels, and so forth. You've been practicing since 2015. Is that correct?
Mm. Yeah, that's right. It's 2015 is when I really settled into my current practice, which is Vipassana. But I tried many different forms, and there are so many different forms. It's not just sitting in lotus pose on your meditation cushion. It could be walking meditation. It could be, meditation is ultimately a state. It's not a separate activity. And then after you're done with that activity, you go into the rest of your life. It's more a state of being present, being mindful, just being conscious of things. I start my mornings with pouring a glass of water at the refrigerator dispenser, just observing for those 7 or 8 seconds, observing the water uh, fill the glass, and just being really present with that as a way to gauge just how busy my mind is on any given day. And it's not about wanting your mind to be different. Like if I find it's monkey mind, unruly, that I want it not to be that. It's accepting, surrendering, just noticing that it is that. And the noticing ultimately is what calms it down then. And so I think, in the context of what we're talking about, doing things mindfully is really just having an awareness of what we're doing that accompanies our doing, so that being presence that we bring into the doing, the activities. And we tend to be mostly, if not entirely, focused on the external world, kind of reacting to things as they show up. A much more guided way to approach life is to, whatever the split may be, maybe it's 50-50, maybe it's 80-20, or even just 90-10, but have some percentage of awareness of yourself, of your sensations, what you're feeling, what these thoughts are, being an observer to some degree to the things that we're doing. And that observer quality keeps us in a place of sane decision making. It's a place of clarity. From that place, we can really observe things as they are, without infusing them with a lot of reactivity, bringing in the past or projections about the future. So it doesn't take much, just a little bit of awareness, observation, quality. If we bring that into our daily activities, it makes a huge positive impact on ourselves and our view on life, but also on everyone around us. It's the light of awareness. It catches on quickly.
I smile when you say all that, because anybody that practices this can relate to that statement very much. It's interesting. You mentioned something about the lotus position earlier. See, I still have a disability. So yes, I'm walking. Yes, I'm out of a wheelchair, but I still have limitations, and those limitations I have to make adaptations for. So can we make those adaptations? I won't tell you mine, but because I want you and anybody that wants to meditate have the opportunity. They don't have to sit with their legs crossed and go put their little fingers together like this you typically see in TV or in the movies. It's something that they can do any place, anytime, correct? And different
Any
methods.
any place, anytime, whatever method resonates with you. Of course, I spent the first several years of meditation practice just sitting on couches and sofas, chairs. It was just more comfortable for me that way, and it's not about hurting yourself or getting uncomfortable. You can always adjust your posture in between. There's some meditation techniques and practitioners that insist that are a little more strict on these things. I'm not. It's certainly in the beginning, it's about just finding those moments, those little moments, a few, like a minute of breathing before we go into an important meeting, a moment of just focusing on how am I feeling. First thing when I wake up, I just quickly scan my body and just kind of observe what's happening, what built up overnight. And that literally takes less than 10 seconds. And so just reinforcing awareness throughout the day is the most important part. Sitting in meditation pose with your spine straight, there's some benefits to that, because there's the flow of energy when you're upright. is more effective. But those are more advanced things, and until we get there, until we feel the calling to do that, there's no reason to force ourselves to do anything.
Well, you've studied with and learned from many of the luminaries of our time, like Deepak Chopra and Dr. Brian Weiss, and I'm familiar with those names and so forth. How'd you get lucky with that?
Well, I mean, I was a retreat junkie for the longest time. I just signed up for everything that was happening. There wasn't some class or some workshop or some healer or practitioner that I wasn't working with. Usually multiple at a time, and that was still when I was just working on myself. So many of those are still around. I just got back from an Eckhart Tolle retreat in Canada, where I was a facilitator. I've been volunteering for him for many years, and so you just start to get involved, and you form your tribe. And it's the same faces that
From that
are, like you
perspective,
said, we're all on that journey. Yeah.
yep. It's pretty. Now I know that you at one point in your life, and you mentioned it earlier when we first started this discussion, just to help people understand how this type of practice, this the connection that we get from meditation and from mindfulness and understanding and gratitude. I'm grateful every day. I try to practice being grateful every day, even when I'm having a flare, because I think that it allows me an awareness that like I still have a disease,
Mhm.
and because I
Yeah.
still have a disease, it gives me inspiration to motivate other people that you have options, kind of a thing. And I look at it that way. So you in doing in getting involved with meditation, I know that you worked the corporate field for a while. You see all the noise and everything else. Has this really given you the opportunity to really reflect back on yourself and how can we step out of that noise? Because sometimes we get so involved and like you said earlier, I know that you really understand that. We get so locked in and involved with everything that's going on and what society expects from us. Get up in the morning, brush your teeth, go in and have your breakfast, you stumble to the car, spend an hour on the road to get to work, sit down in your cubicle, do your stuff, you know, stumble out the door, get back in your car, fight traffic again for another hour, come home, eat dinner, watch some TV, go to bed, do it all over again. Rinse and
Mm.
repeat.
Mm.
How can we understand how to step out of that, to take a breath and start recognizing some of the things that we just talked about?
Mm.
I realize that was
So
a
the
long
good,
question, but
no, it's a great question, and it affects all of us. And so ultimately, you don't need to sell your stuff and move to a remote island. That's the good news. And there is no, yeah. Well, you could do that. That's a choice. Yeah. And there is no bad news. Ultimately, it's you can continue living your life in exactly all those steps that we just mentioned, but it's about becoming aware and breaking it down to those steps, not getting lost in the bigger picture. It's I often tell the story of my mom after having heart bypass surgery. She was afraid of traveling because the the thought of getting on airplanes and for 20 hours and all the people and all of that was overwhelming. And so what we did is we broke it down to the individual activities, the task at hand, which is folding your clothes and then putting your clothes in your suitcase, and taking the suitcase to the stairs and so forth. And so when we break it down to the individual tasks, life is a lot simpler. It's a lot more light. It can be fun ultimately because we don't feel overwhelmed. This energy of overwhelm and like rush leaves us, and instead we're just dealing with very simple tasks most of the day. And there's space that starts to emerge in those simple tasks where we find gratitude, like you said, and appreciation for ourselves. We just have time to reflect on who we are, where we are, what we're feeling, when we're not constantly caught up in thoughts about the next thing and the next thing and all of the 20 things we have to do today on our to-do list. So it's really that simple. Mindfulness is breaking down this complex, overwhelming sense of not having enough time and having too many things to do, and really just focusing on each task one at a time. And that's the first big step to then breathe some space into our day, into our routines, into our relationships, into our jobs, and all the things we're doing. And then from there, more clarity can arise in terms of, is this really for me? Does this job resonate? Is the way I'm organizing my day most efficient? Is it, how can I build in little moments of joy, of mind, more intentional mindfulness, where we spend a minute focusing on our breath while we're sitting in traffic, and it's all stopped, or before the elevator, or before a meeting. If somebody's late for a meeting, rather than being angry at them, we can see it as a gift of, oh my goodness, I have a few minutes to myself to be in stillness, to be in presence that I didn't anticipate having, and using those little moments for that, for practicing and reinforcing mindfulness. And there's many, many moments throughout the day where we can do that. So it's really a fertile ground. No matter how busy we think we are, there's little moments throughout the day, and little moments is all we need to have a deeper experience of life.
It's that old cliche: stop and smell the roses.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's that simple, really. Stop and smell the roses, or the daisies, or the daffodils, or whatever's along the pathway. Stop and look at a butterfly.
Yeah,
Look the
and
wonder
it's
of a butterfly.
exactly, and what you're saying there is one of the secrets of presence and mindfulness, is to notice the detail. We tend to create these
Yep.
snapshots in our minds about, tree, and then the tree becomes a tree. We don't even look at the detail of every single branch and every single leaf being unique. And like you just said, when we stop to smell the roses, to notice some detail in another person, about the conference room we're sitting in, about traffic. It's different every day, and or just maybe looking at the license plates, and just like looking at more detail, that takes us out of this kind of busy mind and into
Yep.
presence. Yeah, so that's a great simple approach again.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like you said, you have to take that step. You have to take that first step. If you don't do that, then you don't really go anywhere. And
Yeah.
it's really easy when you stop and do that. Sometimes we get so caught up in society, we just forget. Our mind is so busy and is racing so fast that we just forget just to take a breath and just kind of relax for a minute. Sometimes we forget. I for the longest time I practiced martial arts while I was law enforcement officer. I practiced Tai Chi. I practiced Qigong. I practiced Kung Fu, Aikido, a little bit of everything. I did like Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee says, learn everything, take a little bit from here, a little bit from here, throw the rest away. So I followed that philosophy, which helped me, believe it or not, through my journey, through going through 8 operations, learning to walk again, and so forth. But I had to be reminded because I sat in a wheelchair and I sat there and felt sorry for myself and I was angry and I was resentful. I had to be reminded that you still have more to do here from that
Yeah.
perspective. And I kind of went, wait a minute. So, not all of us can continue, even though we had practiced it in some form or another, because martial arts, when you do Tai Chi, it's a form of meditation. When you do Qigong, it's a form of meditation. So we forget. I forgot about that because I was angry and I was resentful and I was depressed and this kind of thing. It blockaded the negativity surrounded me so much that I couldn't look past that. So that one simple step, yeah, I agree with you. That one simple step is just one of those things that if we all took the time, it would start opening the doors and the windows, and we can go out on the back patio, listen to the birds, and watch the hummingbirds and the wonder of those, and you know the flowers, and yeah, it's cool. I see. I could just I get excited.
Yeah, it is exciting. There's so much beauty in everything, and the diversity of life. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. Sometimes I feel like there's uh, there's some level of kind of resistance in us
Yeah.
that is necessary, because there's so much beauty out there. If we were constantly taking it in, we'd kind of like overload.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. But
So,
it's as simple as you could take a walk, like you said earlier. Take a walk,
mm,
but don't look at the traffic. look at the stuff around you. Look at the sidewalk. Look at the trees. Look at the bushes. Look at the wildlife. That kind of a situation. If it even as simple as if you don't want to do that, go to a museum. Just relish in the tranquility of the museum because everything in the museum is shh.
Yeah.
You can't say really loud. I love that painting. You're supposed to go. That painting is really nice.
That's actually beautiful. I love that idea. So yeah,
Uh,
museums are kind of a place of enforced mindfulness and stillness. That's beautiful. Art
yeah,
in itself, I think, is um, to really take it in. It puts us into a still place first, and even if we wind up
yeah.
going, "That's awesome," at the end of the experience, it's been mostly stillness and just taking it in. So that's
And just
beautiful.
yeah, mindfulness. It's in understanding where that part of my master's degree is in art. So
Mm.
I love that aspect of it and looking at I don't necessarily have a favorite artist. I like Monet, I like Van Gogh, I like a diversity of art, architecture. That is art. I kind of look at things from that perspective because I feel that the creativity and in the focus that was put into this to allow other people to stop and enjoy this. They painted that for a reason. It may have been personal in the beginning, but it was to share it with the world. Say, look what I like. I love this. I would like you to kind of take a look at this and see if you love this. And same with architecture. I mean, you look at beautiful building. If you look at some of the architecture that stood for thousands of years, and you look at what they created with common basic tools that they didn't like what we have today, and you look at the magnificence of what is there, it gives you a reflection on life like, wow,
Mm.
I can't believe somebody actually created that. They created that for me to enjoy.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean that's my little input because I love doing that. It gives me a good feeling. That's the reason
Yeah.
I thought that's what I recommend to others to do, because it allowed me to. Art is subjective, yes, but that doesn't mean you can't find your niche. And when you find that
Exactly.
niche, it gives you a place to go, a place to relax, a go-to place. Every time you get stressed, every time you get angry, every time you get in a situation, go back to that place.
Mm. Yeah. The passion of creation is, I mean, that's what we're made of, right? Everything that
Yeah,
exists, there's a passion and a desire for it to be. And so we feel that inside of us. And when we become conduits for it, when we either create art or experience other people's art, and they're just expression of this passion for creation, then we really tune into what's
yeah.
at the core of our own existence.
I agree. I agree. And we should all take that pause. We really should. So, excuse me. I know that we just talked about that it's easy for others to get involved with meditation. It's easy to get started. You can meditate for as little as a minute, like you said, standing in front of an elevator, waiting, or sitting on a couch, waiting to go to a meeting. Or you can meditate longer. What kind of steps do you can you share with us in regard to if somebody wants to get involved, somebody wants to take this step and say, "Well, I think I like that. I think I like what Chris is saying. I like what Mike's saying." So, where would they start?
Yeah. So just like with all teachers, right? There's a type of teacher that will resonate with you if you're just starting out, and just that all that is looking around, exploring different voices, different styles, different techniques. I do weekly online meditations that anyone is free to join and try it out. But generally, what I think works really well in the beginning is there's lots of free guided meditations on YouTube. You can just listen to those, put on some headphones, and find a quiet corner, and just allow this kind of the guided ness of it to take you to that place of stillness and wonder and imagination, and then let it unfold from there. It's a journey. It's the inner discovery journey, and there's no prescribed right way for anyone. It's your own experience and your own unfolding. So just having maybe a confidant or an environment, a teacher, a program that creates a safe space, maybe gives you some guidance, some tools on how to let that inner journey, that discovery unfold for yourself, that is obviously helpful. And I think it's mostly finding a safe space to feel like you can express and experience these things without feeling judged. Often, I think we touched on this earlier, once we start to show some interest in yoga and meditation and conscious, movement and these things, they tend to have still in a lot of areas a stigma of woo woo and like
Hippie.
it's not hippie, it's not scientific, all these things. And there's lots of science on all of this at this point. So if that is a means to kind of get into it, absolutely, you can seek out the research on it. Or if you already feel like you can just jump straight in and give it a try. Ultimately, giving it a try, giving it a fair trial is the most important thing. You have to really experience mindfulness. There's so many benefits, but they're your benefits, and their words are just very broad, and they can't really capture the nuances of what it feels like to start to have this weight of this heavy thinking mind being lifted off your shoulders. So you have to experience that piece, and a little bit here, a little bit there, and then it shows you the way.
Yeah, I think, like you said, meditation is never about denying your feelings. It's about recognizing, I think, them and becoming more mindful of what's there, so that you can. You said this earlier about reacting differently to different situations. Whether it
Mm.
be with another individual or your current, you know, your current situation. Um, I think that in if I can ask you this, you said it helps respond to what's actually in front of you, so you can deal with it efficiently and effectively. I love efficiently and effectively because I think I have a business degree, so I guess that's indoctrinated into us. Do things more efficiently and effectively. But in reality, we can manage our lives that way as well. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, some people say we spend upward of 80% of our day lost in thought.
Yeah.
And that's time not actually being present with what's happening. That's time spent lingering on things that happened previously and kind of extending them past their shelf life. It could be, or actually, usually it's the little things. It's like getting cut off. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, and we start to stew in that reactivity for the rest of the day, and then we tell our coworkers about it. You'll never believe what happened, and so forth. And the effective and efficient approach is the path of least resistance, which is to swerve to avoid getting hit or whatever, and then just getting back on track and continuing on. And any lingering on the situation, how dare they? Why why did they? Why are they on the road? Or why does this always happen to me? All these extra thoughts, the story that we tell ourselves on top of it, isn't really necessary. So being able to let go of a situation, it happened, we responded as best as we could, we learned from it one way or another, and then we carry on ready for the next moment. And so
And
we
if you're not
become
used to
much
doing that,
more
it takes practice.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It does take practice, but it's like going to the gym. Start out with small weights before you work your way up to bigger weights, and then you can handle the bigger situations, the situations that we react in bigger ways to, that we work our way up to being able to handle any situation in life ultimately.
From my perspective. Yeah, I think, like you said earlier, baby steps. I love the aspect of baby steps. You got to take baby steps, and you have to be mindful of your environment and mindful of what you're open to. That this is not woo woo, as you said earlier. It's not being a hippie. It's something that can benefit you in many positive ways in all aspects of your life, your business life, your home life, your relationships, your I mean, there's so many. It just your health. It just goes on and on and on. I think for me, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to reflect and again connect mind, body, and soul. We don't work efficiently and effectively if we don't connect our mind, body, and soul. If one's in disconnect, then it makes a bad day for us or those around us. And I think that it's a good thing for this. So when you excuse me, I know that you do retreats. So when you mentioned it earlier about going to a retreat and that you were facilitating a retreat, what happens? Let's help people understand what happens in a retreat.
Hmm. Well, there's all kinds of different retreats in the world that you can seek out. What I was missing when I was kind of in my retreat phase as an attendee was it was two one sided. Usually, it was all meditation or all yoga or then all excursions and activities. And to me, mindfulness and meditation is really bringing the stillness and the presence that we nurture during the mindfulness activities into the more external activities of culture and cooking classes and mala making sessions and just experiencing nature. All of those activities need to be infused with a kind of presence. So the way I've designed my retreats is we bookend our days with mindfulness activities such as breath work and conscious movement and meditation. And we spend the middle part of the day going out, but depending on where the retreat is being held, exploring local nature, local activities, local culture, architecture, art, and cuisine, and so forth. So it's really combining both the being with the doing, the stillness that we then bring into the activities, because that's what our daily life is like. Once we go back home, we want to be able to bring that meditative quality to the activities of dealing with the outside world. So a week of that, it's amazing what it can do is to really nurture the ability to not see these things as separate activities, but to really bring mindfulness into your day. And then you realize it's again, it's not what you do, it's how you do it.
I agree with that. And you don't have to do it. You don't have to give up your current life to do it. You can just take a few moments out, and if those few moments are a 6 or 7 day retreat or a 5 day retreat, there's necessary sometimes for a body. Let me try that in English. It is, see, my brain is working much faster than my mouth. Sometimes it takes just a few minutes or a few days to be able to take that pause. And then we can start recognizing the noise, as you said earlier, and we can start quieting that noise and suppressing that noise to a point where it doesn't have a negative effect on our lives. And that you, from your perspective, you as a teacher, you as an author, you as creating these tools for us so that we can manage our lives more effectively and efficiently through meditation, if I'm
Yeah,
free to say that. Um,
absolutely. It's never about me or any other teacher telling you what your experience should be. Self-discovery is your own thing. It's really creating an environment and the safety of feeling heard and understood and being in the company of like-minded uh, and communities, so that
right.
in that safe space you can really kind of go deep and go within and not have to deal with kind of criticism of others or even just the daily chores, which, like you described earlier, tend to overwhelm us quickly. So it's important once or twice a year, to give yourself that
That
boost.
work.
To Yeah,
Well, I have to be honest. I have not been to one of those retreats, but my wife and I have gone to Maui to do exactly that. Just her and I. We go to Maui. We were able to go to the beach. We took it all in. We relaxed. We paused. We forgot the noise, and it refreshes you. So when you come back, well, it's like all of us. We come back going, I don't know if I want to come back to this noise again. That was so nice, but it also makes us grateful for that opportunity that we had. That we don't always get that opportunity. We're not in a position to do that every 6 months, kind of a thing. Every couple of years we get to do it. So we as human beings, we within a society that sometimes, as you said earlier, thinks that people who meditate are all woo-woo people. How do we overcome that stigma and step into the role of being a meditator?
well, I intentionally set out to address that in my book. That you see the logo right there, BU. in that I found early on as I was getting into it that a lot of the language was just too woo woo for me, and it was getting in the way of the wisdom. And so I set out to write a book on mindfulness that takes out all of that triggering language. There's no word of the universe or even spiritual in there. It's the most unspiritual spiritual book ever written, because it just uses very plain language to describe the wisdoms that have been there for for thousands of years. So that was really the intent. And then for others, they may want the thick spiritual language, and there's literature and material for them as well. So find what resonates is my suggestion. There's completely scientific approaches to showing how the brain responds to meditation. I was on a podcast earlier this morning with a neuroscientist who had incredible insights of how the body responds. And so, if that's a way to get into it, then there's plenty of resources for that. Or if you're ready to just like jump in and do some guided meditations, pop on some headphones and start experiencing. That's it's all good. It's all valid. Just stay connected to what resonates is my recommendation, and just enjoy and embrace the journey.
And if I can add, because my wife, when she went to go work out in a new gym, and she was working on losing some weight, um, honey, please don't be mad at me for talking about this. If you don't hear from me in a couple of days, um, she felt very self conscious about going there and being around and going, well, what are these people going to think of me? And I had to remind her that everybody else in that room are there for the same reason. So, don't be self conscious in regard to that. Everybody that's there with you in that arena are there for the same thing. They're looking for the same thing. Might be different methodology, might be a different approach or a different, way that they want to do it, or they're doing it for a variety of different reasons, but they're all there for the same thing, to improve themselves, to betterment themselves, to give an opportunity to come out of this in a very positive way. So yeah, don't hesitate. In my opinion. But let's talk about your book. I know that would you always want to be an author? Is there something that just you felt that the time was right? Do you think, or had you always wanted to write something like this?
No, I never considered it. Never thought it would. I would write anything. I didn't spend a lot of time writing nor reading, and it was really just through my journaling and kind of inner work that I got into writing, and then that ultimately turned into a voice that was beyond my own that I then felt called to share and talk about. So again, just staying open to the unfolding of life, being connected to that inner voice that then kind of shows us the path that we're supposed to walk. And I always say, people come up to me as like, I want to write something, and how do I get going, and what's the right approach? And I always say, just start writing, right? Even if it's
Right.
just 2 minutes or 2 sentences, give yourself a chance, because what you're trying to do is tap into the flow. It's not about you writing, it's about you becoming a conduit for what wants to come through you. So
That's great.
that's really the state we want to be in. Yeah. So and I notice quickly when I'm writing that it's not working. I'm trying too hard. I'm forcing it, and then I put the pen down and I go meditate or go for a walk or do the dishes, change my mindset, take a shower, something
Right.
to get back to the flow. And so there's something greater, at work here, and to think that we have the sole grasp on truth, and reality is it's just a small way to live. And so by staying open to seeing things as they are, the possibilities, endless possibilities, are contained in all of that. And so
Yeah, I love
that's
that.
that's
I
really
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah, it's it's I've been in that position myself. I have to admit to you and to the universe where I get too much into myself. I'm writing 2 books, Yes, simultaneously. I've got this little bit of a
That's
personality
awesome.
that's well, one is one subject and one is another subject, and they both need to be told. I thought, well, and I do just what you said. If something hits me and I go, oh yeah, that needs to go in there, and I'll go and write it down. I type it, but or I voice it because my hands. But so I don't let that stall me. For the longest time I went, I wrote all this and went, I'm not happy with that. I rewrote it, and then I'm not happy with that, and I rewrote it, and I kind of thought, I got to stop doing this. It's just relax. When it comes, and write it down when it comes in, and it makes life a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So, on your business, let's talk a little bit about you and what you offer to people. I wasn't able to get everything on this screen right here, and because of the room that's on there, but you offer an immense amount of opportunity for people to really connect with themselves and to learn meditation. So, and you got your book, and you've got all this. Can you please help us out and talk about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what I found is that, including in my own journey, that rationally understanding the importance of, keeping a calm mind and making calm decisions and not spending our time lost in thought too much and projections about fear of the future and anxiety, all of that. Um, that doesn't benefit us. Understanding that, yeah, we want to come out of that is a first big step, but then the actual practice of it has to set in. It's exercising our awareness muscle. In It's just like doing anything; it takes a little practice. And once you get going, it's actually remarkable how quickly we find back to kind of a natural state of experiencing life as it's unfolding without constantly judging it and ourselves. But it has to be practice. So a lot of my focus is on the retreats, which help you deepen. If you give yourself a break once a year to really deepen your presence practice, and that can only be done, by physically going somewhere and experiencing a safe environment with others who are doing the same. But then also a daily practice, right? That we participate in mornings and evenings or little moments, opportunities throughout the day. So I work with people in groups to find those opportunities throughout the day to create like a mindfulness program for yourself. And so it's not about changing the way you operate, but it's about becoming better and more efficient at doing the things that you're already doing. So most of the change that we bring into ourselves and into the world will come from bringing this light of awareness that we cultivate within ourselves into our usual environments, into the workplace, into our families and relationship structures. So that's how we really create a deeper and more rewarding experience of life, not by throwing everything out the window and just running off to a deserted island. So I work with individuals. Everyone has their own tailored plan for how to approach life, and everyone has their own unique challenges. So no one size fits all, and so I work with individuals and groups via online and in person, but also at these retreats where we have more of a collective experience that helps nurture mindfulness in a whole different way, in a very powerful way.
And you do have a podcast and your book there, obviously. Tell us
Yes,
about your
yeah.
podcast.
Yeah. So I love being on podcasts, obviously, as we're doing right now, but I also like being in the other seat of asking questions. And I've found that everyone has a remarkable story, even the most seemingly unremarkable person. Once you start talking and asking questions and you're just open to seeing them, they will start sharing just incredible life stories. So that was the motivation behind my own podcast, is to really highlight the journey that people take. It's accomplishments happen while living, but they are not something we should live for. Living for outcome is one of the big kind of traps of the mind, of always kind of wanting to be in the next moment or living for some future point in time instead of being present with what we're doing. So on my podcast, I interview people, and you can be a guest as well. That would be incredible for me to ask the questions because you've got a story to share. Oh my goodness.
Well, I'd love to be, and actually love to be. That's the name of your podcast, Be You. Yeah, we'd love to be on your podcast. We'll talk about that when we
Yes.
close.
Mhm. Awesome. And then, of course, the book itself, like I said, it's written in the most plain language ever. So if you want an intro or even just reminder, because ultimately we need tons of reminders, um, uh, that it's a great book to just jump into different chapters. There's 50 chapters covering all the main areas of life. They're only 3 to 5 pages each, so you don't have to commit a lot of uh, brain power or time. And you can just kind of jump in and get a quick an easy reminder of how to handle a particular situation. So
And all these can be found on your website.
it's all on my website. The URL is down there. It's cirak.com. That's CIRAK.com. And you can find me everywhere on social media at Chris Cirak.
And I'll make sure that stuff's in the show notes and everything so everybody has an easy way just to click and follow the link, and it'll take them right there to it. And it'll have information about your book, about your podcast, about your website, about your retreats, all stuff Chris Cirak. Everything about, most of everything about Chris Cirak. We'll keep a few secrets.
Yes.
So anyway, well, thank you very much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. I think that I love the conversation. We've hopefully been able to inspire some people and motivate some people, and I think we have educated some people in regard to meditation, the value of meditation, and what it can do to change our lives, improve our well-being, and to move us forward in a very positive way on a daily basis. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. It's been such a pleasure. We had a couple of hiccups trying to get this scheduled, and I was looking forward to it each time. This is really the highlight of my day.
Well, thank you. I'm humbled by that. I appreciate that. I figure the universe puts us together when we're supposed to be. So I'm grateful for that universe connection, and I appreciate that. So you may have already said this, but we're going to try this. I always close out with, this is one more thing before you go. So is there any words of wisdom that you can share with us before we go?
Yeah. And that is really ultimately to take to heart that there is no right or wrong. We're always experiencing life as a reflection of who we are at that moment in time. There's no reason to regret anything that we've done. There's no reason to want anything to be different. Everything's unfolding exactly the way it should so that we can become bigger and better people. Life wants us to grow. Everything that challenges us to come out of our comfort zones, to become a bigger, more well-rounded and whole person. So life is really here to love us and look for the lessons in everything that happens, because it's there to make us grow and become who we're really meant to be.
Profound words of wisdom. Thank you for sharing those. I really appreciate it. So again, thank you very much for being on the show. I really appreciate you, what you bring to the world, the positivity and how moving people forward in that kind of a way. And for everybody out there watching and listening, one more thing before you go. Have a great day. Have a great week. And thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to this episode of One More Thing Before You Go. Check out our website at beforeyougopodcast.com. You can find us as well as subscribe to the program and rate us on your favorite podcast listening platform.